Chapter 10. Karl Marx. Karl Marx, 1818 to 1883, was very much in the tradition of Kant and Hegel. With Kant, he saw the real world as that which the philosophical radicals saw it to be, the world within the rational mind. For Hegel, therefore, the rational is the real. Marx took this a step further. Quote, "The philosophers have only interpreted the world differently. The point is to change it." End quote. Interpretation means the attempt to understand a given thing, something created and established. To change the world means, for Marx, to give it a new, man-made meaning. Instead of being content with a world that is, we must remake it into the new world order made in the image of man, the rebel. In the 1930s, in my student days, I was eager to learn what the world of thought had to say, past and present. I read through the classical writers of Greece and Rome, the philosophers of Europe, old and new, and also Karl Marx. Since I can no longer locate the 2 volumes of Das Kapital I once owned, I must have sold them or else given them away. I had found them very much confused and irrational. I discussed them once with a friend, a very able student from an Eastern Jewish family. Always an honest and telling analyst, he told me this: "Marx is indeed what you say, an illogical, angry and contradictory thinker. His quote-unquote greatness is not that he is a good thinker, but in his unswerving insistence on scientific socialism. This means he rejects any given, any pre-existing meaning or assumption. For Marx, reality in the economy must be what man makes it. The, quote, romantic, end quote, socialism Marx denounced insisted still on seeing some kind of given reality in the market. Marx essentially saw no reality other than a man-made one. This was his success. Scientific for Marx means man-made, not God-given. Marx and Engels did refer often to economic facts. In this, they followed traditional economics. They were not interested in following the logical positions of the young Hegelians. As Marx wrote in, quote, the preface, end quote, to the German ideology, quote, "Hitherto, men have constantly made up for themselves false conceptions about themselves, about what they are and what they ought to be. They have arranged their relationships according to their ideas of God, of normal man, etc. The phantoms of their brains have gained the mastery over them. They, the creators, have bowed down before their creatures. Let us liberate them from the chimeras, the ideas, dogmas, imaginary beings under the yoke of which they are pining away. Let us revolt against the rule of thoughts. Let us teach men," says one Ludwig Feuerbach, "to exchange these imaginations for thoughts which correspond to the essence of man," says the second, Bruno Bauer, "to take up a critical attitude to them," says the third, Max Stirner, "to knock them out of their heads, and existing reality will collapse." End quote. The Kantian absorption with thought was not for Marx. He was fully in acceptance of Kant and Hegel. He wanted to shift the focus from thought about the world to action, to thought to change the world. He ridiculed the philosophical quest in the concluding paragraph of his, quote, preface, end quote. Quote, "Once upon a time, an honest fellow had the idea that men were drowned in water only because they were possessed with the idea of gravity. If they were to knock this idea out of their heads, say by stating it to be a superstition, a religious idea, they would be sublimely proof against any danger from water. His whole life long he fought against the illusion of gravity, of whose harmful results all statistics brought him new and revolutionary philosophers in German." End quote. The philosophers sought to prove that there is no God and no God-created universe. Marx dismissed God or the God idea as irrelevant. His task was to outline how the world can be remade by man. the working creator, had to be scientific man. Richard Wurmbrandt has cited evidence of Karl Marx's early Satanist ideas. It is clear that his was a radical revolt against God. Like the Death of God school of thought of the early 1970s, he assumed not the actual non-existence of God, but his irrelevance to man in history. His goal was the creation of an anti-God world, the creating of a totally man-made and man-ruled social order. He was thus contemptuous of the atheists of his day. Their absorption with ideas was absurd. They should be creating a world without God. The Hegelian philosophers ascribed to ideas an independent existence. Marx wanted to give the whole man an existence independent both of God and the philosophers. Man lives because of his economic activity. This gives him the means of subsistence. Hence, the independence of man must be sought by means of economics. This independence is not simply from capitalistic men, but from God. In Marx's words, quote, "Morality, religion, metaphysics, all the rest of ideology and their corresponding forms of consciousness thus no longer retain the semblance of independence. They have no history, no development. But men, developing their material production and their material intercourse, alter, along with this, their real existence, their thinking and the products of their thinking. Life is not determined by consciousness, but consciousness by life." This is why economics was so important to Marx. The necessary success of his thinking would find vindication there. But Marx, usually as clear in his writing as a man can be, was very unclear in his economics. For all his emphasis on economics, it was there that his failure was so apparent and his thinking remarkably muddled. Man must be the creator essentially in the sphere of economics. Economics, to be triumphant in the Marxist sense, should eliminate alienation and a consciousness of the self. The scientific socialist world order would be man-made, but men in it would be like the ants in an anthill. The ants and bees do not know a God. Where man's alienation is ended, neither will he. Although economics is the heart of life, until now, Marx said, revolutions have had political and other motive forces. Quote, 3. In all revolutions up till now, the mode of activity always remained unscathed, and it was only a question of a different distribution of this activity, a new distribution of labour to other persons, whilst the communistic revolution is directed against the preceding mode of activity, does away with labour, and abolishes the rule of all classes with the classes themselves, because it is carried through by the class which no longer counts as a class in society, is not recognised as the class, and is in itself the expression of the dissolution of all classes, nationalities, etc., within present society. And 4. Both for the production on a massed scale of this communist consciousness and for the success of the cause itself, the alteration which can only take place in a practical movement, a revolution, this revolution is necessary. Therefore, not only because the ruling class cannot be overthrown in any other way, but also because the class overthrowing it can only in a revolution succeed in ridding itself of all the muck of ages and become fitted to found society anew. End quote. Revolution is the Marxist Pentecost. It is the means to the mass conversion of the peoples. This conversion, however, is downward. It is power from below, not power from above. In the rest of the German ideology, Marx denounces the socialists of his day who insist on a moral meaning to man's history and to socialism. Marx rejects all such attempts. Quote-unquote, scientific means for Marx non-moral and non-theological. For this reason, atheism was more than a peripheral belief for Karl Marx. It was essential to his system. A priori, there could be no God nor prescribed good and evil from above. With the Prometheus of Aeschylus, Prometheus bound, he could say, quote, "In sooth, all gods I hate," end quote. For Marx, quote, "Prometheus is the noblest of saints and martyrs in the calendar of philosophy," end quote. So important was atheism to Karl Marx that he could write, quote, "For Germany, the criticism of religion is in the main complete, and criticism of religion is the premise of all criticism," end quote. For Marx, man finds in the heavens and the gods only a reflection of himself. Man is not outside nor above the world, an aspect of nature. Truth is not beyond the world, but rather the world is the only truth there is. As a result, the intellectual's critique must be directed against the world and against politics. But basic to criticism in any sphere is atheism. As a result, not only criticism in the philosophical sense, that is, revolution in the intellectual sphere, but physical revolution, criticism in the political sphere are necessary for Marx. In his, quote, "Contribution to the Critique of Hegel, Philosophy of Right," end quote, Marx saw Germany in need of both a radical critique of religion and a revolutionary critique of its politics. This meant a radical secularization of society. This required a dissolution of both the existing states and churches, the negation of private property, and, quote, "the dissolution of the hereto existing order by the proletariat," end quote. Marx saw this revolution as one proclaiming, quote, "man to be the highest essence of man," end quote. In other words, man cannot be defined by anything outside of or beyond himself. There is neither good nor evil, law nor morality outside of man. What the Marquis de Sade and also Max Stirner had affirmed on the purely personal sphere, Karl Marx affirmed on the political sphere. Man is beyond good and evil because there's nothing above, over or beyond man other than man as a proletarian people. In the Communist Manifesto, Marx and Engels call for the total reorganization of mankind in terms of a total statist control of every sphere. For Marx, the old order had been essentially Christian. However much Marx at times saw this as a strictly controlled order, he was also aware of the extensive freedom it allowed. The old order, as a religious organization of society, depended on belief, on faith, whereas Marx's proposed order, as a statist one, would have to rely on coercion. Quote, "The communists disdain to conceal their views and aims. They openly declare that their ends can be attained only by the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. Let the ruling classes tremble at a communistic revolution. The proletarians have nothing to lose but their chains. They have a world to win. Working men of all countries, unite." End quote. This issue was between revelation and revolution. What was the source of value? God or man's labour? This was the essential question raised by the builders of the Tower of Babel. Like Marx, they were sure of the answer.